Yeah, I guess we better connect. It makes more sense for me to just connect to mine. Just because I'm already. We're live. I did hit that button. We're having some technical situations. We'll see if this works. Not the best. And we're back. We'll fix this. One moment. I'm going to have to keep it brief. But that's probably all. No, that's not right. Well, it says we are connected. Let's just roll with it and see what happens. I hope you all enjoyed the first first minute and 45 seconds.
Rolling podcasting going on here on the concourse of Mackey Arena. 92-49 victory over University of Indianapolis.
The only drama left was whether we were going to keep an internet connection. Hopefully, a couple of you are joining us, or you'll watch us later. So there's a couple of things jump out at you really quickly from tonight. Purdue obviously wanted a better defensive performance. I thought tonight you saw the impact that Daniel Jacobsen could make, the problems that his ultimate length and size can cause, whether he's blocking shots, whether he's getting in passing lanes. Like, that was really evident tonight. And the backbone that can create for a defense. Now I think that the next step is keeping the dribble penetration out of there that led to some of the foul trouble. Now, he and Osterkloff both had a moving screen, so it's not full absolution there, but they definitely did end up committing fouls off of drives that were coming in from the outside, and that's still an area Purdue has to clean up.
Yeah, and the luxury that Purdue has, which it didn't have in past years, is the ability to play two guys there, and then, as we saw, when both of them were in foul trouble, you can put Trey Coppin-Rin at the 5, and I think that's something that Purdue's going to have to do at times this year when it maybe plays a smaller lineup anyway. So this was a nice little way to see how you can utilize three different guys at that position. Daniel Jacobsen came in 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the game, and instantly was a spark. He blocked a shot. He stole a ball, pass in the lane, and he had I think a lob dunk, and then he had a putback dunk on a missed free throw. Hasn't missed a shot yet, and when you're 7'4", it should be pretty easy to drop the ball in the bucket a lot of times. But the other teams are trying to stop you as well. So yeah, I thought he was a big boost, and that's probably the intrigue going into the season is how Purdue continues to use those two guys, because Matt Painter thinks that it's a better team and a better rebounding team with Oscar Clough on the floor. It's a better offensive team with Daniel Jacobsen on the floor, and he's a better rim protector. And so you kind of get a little bit of everything with those two guys. And then whenever you can put Trey Coppin-Rin at the 5, you get something totally different.
I actually thought maybe Jacobsen's most impressive basket was the last one, which was the most academic of all of them. And Mackey Arena started to empty out, but he kind of got tied up there in the lane a little bit and had to kind of fight through it, and then threw in a one-handed shot for his last basket of the night. Another guy that stood out, obviously, Gicarri Harris, who I thought played pretty well in his 15 minutes against Kentucky, and that was like a 5.2 rebound performance. And I don't know, looked like a guy in the post game that when he was telling us that C.J. Cox was going to start and why C.J. Cox was going to start, he said this probably comes as a disappointment to Gicarri Harris in particular, who had really wanted to start and who started at the beginning of last year. And he played like a starter tonight for sure. I mean, 20 points. He made, what was it finally, 4 or 5 from 3-point range,
7 to 10 overall.
And and a guy who, and then also still had his customary, couple steals and some and it's hard to call it a slump because he's only taking like one shot a night, especially when you start coming off the bench. But just a prolonged stretch of shots aren't falling for him from the perimeter to start with this. He's not going to shoot 4 or 5 every night, but you see the confidence in him than what it was not just a year ago at this time. I think even at the end of last season, I think you're seeing a much more confident player.
Right, and whether he starts or not, if he plays like that, he's getting starters minutes a lot of nights. So that's people continue to harp on, whether it's us, whether it's just the depth of the team, and it gives you a lot of flexibility when CJ Cox isn't playing well. Gicarri Harris gets more minutes. When Gicarri Harris is having an off night, you can play CJ Cox more minutes. There's just so much to delve into with this roster. And Wayne made a decision on redshirting Antoine West, which is kind of the thing still up in the air. And Matt Painter said, "We'll talk again before the Evansville game. I'll give you kind of the rundown there." But that's the, if somebody does redshirt, I would imagine it would be Antoine West. He did hit a couple threes tonight and got pretty fired up after he missed 3. I thought he was kind of a good spark. Even though he missed 3 straight threes, he kept shooting them like he did before. And whether he redshirts or not this year, I think he's a guy that shows he can be useful piece of this offense for years down the road.
He's like the perfect redshirt conundrum in some ways because you don't know where the minutes are. Like once a season starts, barring something catastrophic happening. At the same time, you see what kind of catalyst he could be on a given night. And it's just, will they need that on some given night at some point between now and April? And it makes a difference. You don't know. I do know that as of yesterday, noonish, they had not had the second conversation that always goes into these things. And from what Matt Painter said tonight, that still hasn't happened probably yet. So I think something for them to ruminate on in the next few days. It's one of those things that's like of great interest to us who are like following the progression of a program, but it's maybe not a huge impact on what ends up happening with this team this season. But I thought that the thing that was really interesting for him to talk about that idea, like he was saying to us last week, we've got more than 5 guys who can start. We've got more than 5 guys who deserve to start, but not everybody can start. And it comes back to that. I know that there's probably people out there who are looking at what happened tonight and saying, well, why is maybe Gicarri Harris should start now? I would remind you of a couple of things. Number one, we saw CJ Cox do the same thing when he came off the bench last year a couple times against Alabama. Some other examples, like those guys can both do that, and both would do that depending on who started. Painter has said that he prioritizes who fits the best with those starters. So it's not really, I know the idea is, well, the starters are this good, and then you take this guy who's hot and put him in there. That makes everybody even better, right? I don't know that the math always checks out on that. I'm sure it's something that they'll consider. The other thing is, though, the way that this is supposed to work is, you get the best 5-man combination, and for whatever reason, you get off to a good start with that group. And then the next wave comes in and just carries it kind of seamlessly along. And I thought we saw tonight an example of it working perfectly. It's not a lineup controversy. This is what's supposed to happen. You put your best 5, your best group of 5 together out there, and then Harris and Jacobsen come in and really provide a spark that kind of takes that up to another level. I think that's a positive to take from this, not a shouldn't those guys be starting sort of thing.
Right. And I think that we're going to know a lot more against when Purdue plays Evansville. Lineups are going to start to get solidified a little bit tonight. Drayton Smith plays 22 minutes. I think Fletcher Loyer plays something like 18 minutes. The score kind of dictated that, but I think that was the plan going into this, was to see what you have out of some of these other guys. Liam Murphy, there was a point in this game, I was like, where does he fit in this whole thing? Because 5 minutes to go, we hadn't seen him. He played 1 or 2 minutes at Kentucky. And then he comes in and, I thought he was pretty good on the boards. I don't know how many rebounds he had. 4 rebounds. And he hit a 3, had a pretty nice dunk around pass from Aaron Fye. And he shows that he's just another piece in this cog that, when you want to win a national championship, you have to have guys that are 8, 9, 10 deep that can give you that. And that's the reason that he's here. We did get a question from Brad. He said, any takeaways from the lineups you've seen so far? Some that work, some that don't, maybe something that surprised you. And I think we kind of covered that a little bit. And again, I don't know if you've seen the lineups they're going to play defensive.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and I think it's a good question. It's just that they've played so many lineups, and there's some lineups that they've played that you'll probably never see again. I mean, I think Painter even said something about that after the first game, right? That like we played lineups you'll never see, and like in the first half at the under 12, I think it was like Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are checking out the game together. This is never ever going to happen in the first half of a game, probably, or stretches where both of them and TKR are on the bench together. Like, so I do think there are some things I've taken from these games. One is Oscar Clough. The rebounding has kind of come in fits and starts. Like I feel I only have rebound until today it was foul trouble, but even then I think they were expecting more than one rebound through the first 26 minutes of game action. I think he didn't pick up his second rebound until there was 14 something left in the second half. Didn't get his third one until there was 9 something left. And yes, he was on the bench with foul trouble for some of that. I think they're just expecting a little bit more of an impact against a team like UIndy. After the first game, I think that's still out there, and he hasn't looked all that comfortable yet offensively. So I'm curious if that's just something that he has to sort out. Playing with a new group, all those sorts of things. Is that something that he will be able to sort out and become what they're hoping it is, which is just a really good 40 minutes of center play, no matter how you divide it up.
Yeah, and there was a point where I think I said to you, is Oscar Clough going to make a post move? He caught the ball down there, and he kind of looked both ways and then passed it back out, or he took a dribble and then passed it back out. He's got offense. He shot 60% last year and averaged almost 18 points a game at South Dakota State. But I think you're right. He missed the summer because he had some visa issues, so he was behind already. He came in and was out of shape, what we were told when we first got a chance to talk to him. So I think he's just now kind of catching up a little bit. And as the season goes on, you're probably going to see him more and more comfortable. But
and also, not to interrupt, but when he was at South Dakota State, I mean, he's the man,
right?
And now I think it is an adjustment. He's even talked about it. Now you are in the middle of this, but you're playing with the other best players in college basketball. You're playing with an All-American and a possible All-American, and then Fletcher Loyer, who looked really good tonight. I mean, he had 16 points on 4-6 shooting in 18 minutes. That's a super efficient night. So then there's probably a lot going through his head right now. There might be, is all I'm saying. So that's why I'm kind of thinking we need to take the long view of that and see how that develops. But it hasn't looked as seamless as we thought maybe it would to start the season.
Couple of things. Obviously, the defense was better. The caliber of competition obviously wasn't as good as Kentucky, but the defense was better. I thought Gicarri Harris, CJ Cox were very good in that, just staying in front of their man. But still saw some instances where guys got downhill, got in the lane, and that's why you get your centers in some foul trouble. Clearly, the shooting was much better, which makes it easier. 15 of 30 from 3. But Purdue's going to have to do this away from Mackey Arena at times too.
Away from UIndy too. Sorry,
yeah. I mean, a lot more comfortable environment and a much easier opponent tonight. So, and then when you get a big lead, you can kind of fire free will a little bit too. So,
I had to sit down with my painter the other day for just some things I was working on, and he was bringing up. He said the thing that we all jumped on after the game against Kentucky, which was, we have problems, we have flaws, or however he said it. And he said, the way he brought it, he said, well, what people don't understand is everybody has problems. Everybody has those flaws, but not everybody can expose them. That's why they play the Kentucky game. This isn't a game that really exposes flaws. But one thing I think it does harp on or reinforce is another thing he said to me, which was basically, they've got these other guys who are good defensively that you've brought up, the Gicarri Harrises and CJ Cox and other people who are positive defensive influences on this team. But if the three guys who play the most minutes by far aren't better defensively, they're not going to be good enough defensively. Like Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, this has to be the best defensive season of their careers if Purdue wants to win a national championship. Like, just the numbers just say that they have a lot of room that they have to cover in improvement to get to what is the defensive standard of national champions over the past 15 years, the data that I looked back on. And those three guys have to lead it. And I think, it's exhibition games. Okay. When things turn on next week, do we start to see some progression on things like dribble containment, on being more disruptive, on just staying in front of your man?
Yeah. And one thing, this is going back to the centers that I thought a student reporter brought up. The press conference was over, and then Matt Painter pointed out and said, hey, you have your hand up, ask the question. He does that very often. He's notorious for it. But I thought it was a very good question. He said, how does it help that you have a lob threat this season, which you didn't have last year? Because the first 2 years Braden Smith was running this offense, he could throw the ball towards the rim, and Zach Edey was going to go get it, and you were most likely going to get 2 points. Now you have Daniel Jacobsen, who's not only 7'4", but he can elevate. He's a pretty athletic guy for as tall as he is, and can go up and get it. We saw that a couple times tonight. I think Oscar Club can also be that. And one of the things we saw that we haven't seen in the exhibition games is Trey Kaufman-Renn in that short roll, also then lobbing over the top because the defense collapses on him. So There's still a lot of possibilities here, just how you can use the lob threats that will add more to this offense.
Well, that lob dunk that you mentioned at the beginning that Daniel Jacobsen had in that stretch, remember who that came from?
Jack Benter.
It was coming from the wing. It wasn't even coming from one of the guards, one of the points, definitely. So, yeah, we still haven't seen where all this offense can grow. This offense was, 7th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency last year. You would say that there's not a lot of upward movement on that on paper, but I think there probably is. I mean, I think they could be even better. They've talked about, the volume that they want Fletcher Lawyer shooting. I mean, tonight it was 4 threes in 18 minutes. Well, like, he'd be taking 6 to 8 threes a night. He's historically been not necessarily a huge volume shooter, but just such an efficient shooter, like, picking his moments so well. Does he start to take more threes? Do they start to get all that action that you're talking about with the a bigger 5 next to Trey Kaufman-Renn? There's a lot that could still lift, and then I think if they're better defensively, they'll be better offensively. You'll see them do what they were doing tonight, which is turning defense into offense and letting that be sort of the spark of the fast break, the spark of just getting down and running your actions and against a defense that isn't set up yet.
Yeah, and to your point on the Fletcher Lawyer volume thing, it drove some people, Purdue fans, nuts a couple years ago that he was shooting at such a high percentage from 3. It might have been last season early on. But the NCAA mandates you average 2.5 3-point attempts per game to be in their leaders.
Yeah.
And he had far more makes than some guys that were on the list, but he wasn't eligible to be on the leader list. But I imagine that he will have no problem averaging 2.5 3-point attempts per game this season, especially if this offense does reach those numbers in the efficiency that you mentioned, because there's going to be a lot of points to be had. I don't know if Trey Kaufman-Renn will average 20 again, but if he's around that, and then you get what you should get out of Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, and then Gicarri Harris will pop out and have 24 there. CJ Cox, those guys are capable of having big games. It's going to be pretty incredible if they can get out in transition, which is something that kind of held them back at times last year.
Yeah. We've got more work to go do, so we're going to go do that. Thanks for joining us. We will probably talk a little bit more basketball on Thursday's episode edition, however you want to say it, of Boilers Extra. Like, subscribe. It really helps us out. We appreciate you joining us, and we will talk again soon.